Hey folks, back with ancient cosmography, and here we have, I tried to recreate the story of, Diarmid Mako Duin and the Golden Boar, the giant and the gianter boar. That, it's a Celtic Gaelic story that I think describes Papua and Australia. So that this is, Diarmid is described basically as a giant man, but also as a hawk. So I think that his face here is like a hawk, and I think this is his legs and his feet here. And I think Papua Peninsula is his schlong, based on the Lascaux avatar. And then, the boar is Australia with Cape York as its snout. And then, Diarmid throws a spear at the boar, which breaks into three, and those are the three Wessel Islands here that look like a spear. And then he pulls a sword out of its sheath. So I think the sword is this Elko Island or something. And the sheath is this, forget what it's called, another island that's kind of shaped like a sheath. And then so that's how he kills the boar, but then he ends up dying because the other giant that tricked him to come over here and wanted him to get killed by the boar then tricked him to measure the boar on the top of the snout, which is where the Great Barrier Reef is. And then he gets killed by one particular bristle, which seems to be Warrior Reef right here. So the difference between this and other comparisons that I've done is that this one this one I just took like a straight image of the whole area, and then I just added the zoomed on parts. So I've done ones before where I added a zoomed in image of Cape York, superimposed it over the actual, zoomed out image or whatever. But the difference here is that I not only included in the zoom in the entire Torres Strait, which is kind of the point of this whole story, to memorize how to sail through this strait, but also, and including Warrior Reef, which is central to the story, but also the adjacent coast. So I'll just say it's not easy to try to fit this. Like, it took me a long ass time to be able to make it kind of work, where it's more or less connects on all four corners to the rest of the, zoomed out part, and doesn't look too wonky or whatever. So yeah, not easy, but it's cool that it can be done, that you can just, because that is the point. It's like right here, you just want to be able to sail through here. You want to know that this reef is here, which killed Diarmid. The only unfortunate thing is it doesn't show, it kind of covers up all the estuaries here that I think are Diarmid bleeding out. But other than that, it has a good view of the boar's snout and tusk and bristle, and then even more or less shows the vessels and the sword and sheath. So yeah, that is good. So yeah, like the spear, you know, it looks like a straight spear, but it's 3 islands: Marchimbar, Guluwuru, and Raragala. And then the sword is Elko, and the sheath is Howard Island. Got Cape York, Warrior Reef right here, the Great Barrier Reef. Warrior Reef is basically part of the Great Barrier Reef. It's kind of like the furthest northern extent of it, you could say. And yeah. Then Mako Dun, with arms well pointed to, answers the horrid beast with ready hand. Away from his side there rushed the heavy spear, hard following on the course the boar pursued. The javelin shaft felt shivered into 3, the shaft recoiling from the boar's tough hide. The spear hurled by his warm red-fingered hand never penetrated the body of the boar. Then from its... So it says that it recoiled from the boar's tough hide, so that's why these islands are not right touching the coast. They're a little ways out. Hard to see exactly, but there's basically some space between here and these Wessel Islands. And then from its sheath, he drew his, so it says, the body of the boar, never penetrated the body of the boar, then from its sheath. So I think that's a play on words, because the sheath itself is basically almost attached to the body of the boar. So when he says he's talking about the body of the boar, its sheath. He draws this sword. That's how I read it. Of all the arms most crowned with victory, Mako Dun did there the monster kill, while he himself escaped without a wound. Measure Diarmid the boar down from this, and then Finn McCool gets pissed because he was trying to get Diarmid killed by the boar, but it didn't work, so now he's trying another way. He says, measure Diarmid the boar down from the snout, and tell how many feet's the brood in length. What Finn did ask he never yet refused, alas that he should never see his home. Along the back he measures now the boar, light-footed Mako Dun of active step. Measure it the other way against the hare, and measure Diarmid carefully the boar. It was indeed for thee a mournful deed, youth of the sharply pointed piercing arms. He went, the errand grievous was and sad, and measured for them once again the boar. The envenomed pointed bristle, so this, the warrior reef, sharply pierced the soul of him, S-O-L-E, so that means the underside of him, the bravest in the field. Then fell and lay upon the grassy plain the noble Mako Dun, whose look spoke truth. He fell and lay along beside the boar. So that's where they lay now forever. They lay along beside each other. And so this is just a story to symbolically explain that. It's not meant to be taken literally. That's the problem, is modern people take ancient stories literally. And that's not the way. It's a fictional mnemonic to memorize stuff. So yeah. Diarmid Mako Dun, that's what like a real boar's snout looks like. It has, it goes up on the top. You got the tusks and the hairs on the top, the bristles. And here's a zoom in on, Elko and Howard and Marchimbar and Guluwuru, I think, and Raragala. Oh, wait, no. Marching Bar, Guluwuru, and Raragala. Yeah. And then Warrior Reef. Boom. All right, so that's fun stuff. This writer just has contacted me to use a photo from my book, Carol Nervig. But now I'm not entirely sure if the photo she wants is actually, I don't have the best provenance for that particular photo. But anyway, at least we're corresponding about stuff. She lives in Ecuador. She studies this place, Nan Madol, which is this megalithic site basically in Micronesia in the Pacific. And so let's see, revisioning the Earth. So this is talking about Micronesia. The Micronesians, this is not from her book, this is another book. And Micronesians do produce training maps on the beach, though, which consist of sticks and stones or shells, collectively representing currents, lines of swells, reefs, localized wave patterns, and so forth. Their 32-point star compass can also be represented as a beach diagram of pebbles for the training of young navigators. All this subtle information is consigned to memory, as one Micronesian song puts it, "When one is down, another rises. He remembers those stars deep within him." There is a variety of other navigational mnemonics. In one scheme, Puluwat navigators use the shape of the triggerfish as a mental chart. In this, the navigator imagines his base as the center of the fish's backbone. He envisages himself when sailing west to be traveling towards the tail and the setting point position of the star Altair, then back to the backbone or center of the imaginary fish, and south following the Southern Cross to the ventral fin, back to the center, north to the dorsal fin, and finally back to the center. A mnemonic system extended from this, called Triggerfishes Tied Together, contains named information on physical places such as reefs and islands and sandbanks, as would appear on a Western naval chart, but also includes the name of an imaginary frigate bird seen in rough water, a mythical vanishing island somewhat like the Irish Brazil, names for big waves, a large and mythical destructive whale, and a place where a figurative whale with two tails can be seen. Systems like this not only encode a great deal of information about the ocean environment that would be missed by the average Western observer, but can also serve a wider purpose, according to Per Haig, who suggests they can be used for the storage and retrieval of other kinds of cultural information, myths, spells, ceremonies, chants, recitations. But the thing is, all those things are used for that. That's not a separate thing. That's the same thing. Like all the chants and spells were to memorize science. It's just a fact. Neo-paganism is a lie. Like actual paganism was science. A Pacific Island navigator will know the direction from his own house in which each navigation star sets, and will mark it by some feature on land as he leaves his island. So so he marks the land. So it's like the sky and the earth are forever intertwined in every way in the ancient systems. because they understood that's the way you navigate well. Let's see. So I found, all these cave paintings that seem to be maps. Like this seems to be a map of this. This Lascaux Birdman seems to be Papua, and his bird head is Bird's Head Peninsula, and his beak is Bird's Beak Peninsula, and everything. And I think this depiction of a boar from Sulawesi represents Australia. So I think that, and this is from the oldest paintings on Earth, 45,000 years old. So I think that basically the same way that ancient Egyptian, books of the underworld, maps of the underworld would show like these anthropomorphic figures, or even the Nile itself is shown as an anthropomorph. So they did the same thing, throughout prehistory, throughout the Paleolithic, and that's what all those cave paintings are. It's certainly the most parsimonious solution. So here's somebody who, agrees to it in the sense that, because I'm saying that the Paleolithic art is the same as the later Bronze Age religious art, and he's agreeing on that. This is Ryan Z. Cortazar. Cave paintings show religious sophistication. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but for Kathleen Perles, cave paintings provide a link to understanding thousands of years of human history and thought. In examining cave paintings in Western Europe and archaeological sites in the Near East, Perles said that the similarities and differences between the artifacts shows that, contrary to a controversial theory by archaeologist Jacques Covin, human belief in gods pre-existed the birth of agriculture and the cultivation of animals. Yes, so that's what those things are, gods. The gods are the stars, the planets, the islands, the rivers, rendered anthropomorphically usually. Perles, a professor of anthropology at the University of Paris-Aix, presented her findings at the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology, where she delivered the Hallam L. Movius lecture on April 19th. The thrust of Perles' talk focused on the causes of the Neolithic Revolution, a shift from hunting and gathering to an agricultural lifestyle that occurred approximately 12,000 years ago and was marked by the development of villages and agriculture, as well as the invention of war writing and administration. Currently, the debate surrounding this issue focuses on whether the cause